Here are 10 apps that I use every single day for work and in my personal life. Every single one of these is solving a problem for me in some way, whether it's just making my life easier or helping me stay focused, including a new app that I just discovered about a month ago that's probably going to go down as App of the Year for me. So let's jump into it. Quick disclaimer that none of these are sponsored or in any particular order. First up, we have an app called HazeOver. Essentially what this app does is dim all of the windows and apps around whatever you're focused on your Mac. So you can hit a simple keyboard shortcut, and then whatever app you're focused in will be the main center of attention, and then it just applies a subtle overlay around it. What I like about this being on a dual monitor setup is that I often have a ton of apps open at once that I don't necessarily want to close when I'm going into more of a focused mode. So I can quickly toggle in and out of this, and it'll just dim those screens when I don't need them. You can also adjust the intensity of that overlay, and it works really well with two monitors if you want to have a unique window per monitor or just have one app for the entire setup. There's a good amount of customization too. They allow you to adjust the intensity of the overlay, how quickly it applies, so you could have it set to be instant or take a little bit longer and fade into it. I like the shortcut workflow because I don't have to be clicking around in the menu bar or even opening up an app by any means. So whenever I'm ready to switch into kind of a deep work mode, I can hit the shortcut and I'm good to go. Next up is a screenshot tool called CleanShot X. I have been using this app for almost 5 years now. It's the best screen recording and screenshot app around. I have this through my subscription with SetApp. Again, not a sponsor, but there's tons of great tools in this, so I highly recommend going that route rather than paying for CleanShot directly. But there's a couple main reasons I love this app so much. First of all, when you take a screenshot, it doesn't just pop up and then disappear like the native screenshots on Mac. It actually will just continue to stack up as many screens as you take. So if you have 5 or 6 screenshots at once, they'll just stay pinned and they obviously don't show up in the screens as you're taking them back to back. But then you can also click in and out of any one of these and apply different edits. So I use this a ton at work to make annotations or even just make pretty mock-ups of our UI screens. If I'm throwing it into a presentation, I can click into a screenshot, add a nice little padding around the corners, and I always get compliments about why the screens look so good or how I'm able to pull this off so quickly. And it's because of CleanShot. I also use this for screen recordings if I'm just sharing a quick video with coworkers or doing a quick demo. And if you connect this to their cloud service, which is included in your subscription, you can actually upload those immediately, so nothing's being saved to the desktop. I also have this set up with a custom domain, so it looks a little bit more professional and branded, which is nice. Anyone who's using a professional Mac setup knows that the Retina quality is ridiculously high. And so one thing that's nice is that you can actually compress the quality down to something a lot more reasonable, to like 1280 by 720, 1500. You don't need to be sharing these like 4,000 or 5,000 pixel wide videos. That also means it uploads faster, it loads better, there's no processing time. So having that built in is a plus as well. Number 3 is Granola, and this is my go-to meeting transcription app. I've tried a ton of them out there. I've used Notion AI, I've used Google Meet, Gemini, and for some reason Granola has just stuck with me because I think everything comes into one place. So it's really easy to see all of your transcripts all together rather than going through like a database or going through Calendar in Google. But you can also chat and ask questions across any of your meetings. Now, I used their free plan for about 9 months and didn't have any issues. The only limitation is that your notes won't save past 30 days. So if you're good at offloading notes and maybe just clearing it out every couple weeks, you shouldn't really run into any issues. I found that I needed to use some of the more advanced models to ask specific questions sometimes, and I think on the free plan you're limited. I only recently upgraded just because I want as much history as possible in case I want to go back and ask a question or pull out a specific quote from a meeting a few months ago. But other than that, you can pretty much get away with the free version. You can obviously connect it to your calendar, so anytime a meeting pops up, you can join and begin transcribing immediately. I'll typically use the chat to ask very specific questions about a meeting if I can't remember what was said or I'm trying to get the specific wording that someone used. And then at the end of the week, I'll ask it to just look over all my meetings and list every single action item, whether it's mine or someone else on the team. It's really nice to see everything that we talked about in the week, and I can just do a final check before I wrap up for the week. Next up, we have Meter, and this is a simple way to track what meetings and calendar appointments you have for your day. It lives in your menu bar, and when you pull it down, it'll list out whatever you have on your calendar, and you can join a meeting immediately if there's a link attached. It plays really nicely with all the calendars, all the meeting tools. I've been using this as well for about 3 or 4 years, and I've almost never had issues. I will say that because I'm using Granola to join and start transcribing now, I pretty much just use Meter as a countdown to whenever the next meeting is, but it's still really nice just having it up in the menu bar and not always having to pull up my calendar. Next, we have Text Sniper, and this is a simple OCR tool that basically allows you to take a screenshot and then it just captures whatever text is in that window to your clipboard. Now, I do think native screenshots will allow you to select text, at least on Mac and iPhone, but you still have to take a screenshot, then go to the screenshot and highlight it. Whereas if you already know specifically what you want to capture, you can skip that step entirely. You don't have to save a file and it copies directly to your clipboard. So this is great if someone has sent a screenshot or they're sharing their screen and I'm trying to get that out into something like Claude or pasting it into a text layer in Figma, and I don't want to bring in all the formatting or retype it manually. It's become a pretty natural part of my workflow, and I have it mapped to Command-Shift-2 right next to my regular screenshot tools, and I use it every single day. Number 6 is Whisper. This is my dictation tool. I think it is really, really worth the investment, especially if you use a ton of AI tools, even if it's just Claude, but especially if you're talking to Cursor or you write a lot of emails. I found that I'm using my keyboard a lot less. And when you're working from home at your desk 8+ hours a day, it's really good to give your muscles a break and just use your voice sometimes and not always having to be in the same position using your mouse and keyboard. I found that Whisper does a good job fixing mistakes live, so you don't have to do it in bursts. You can honestly turn it on for 5, 10, 15 minutes and just keep talking. And even if you mess up a ton of times or you have a bunch of filler words, it takes all of that out for you. And if there's specific words that it sometimes doesn't understand, like your internal company products or people's names, whenever those are getting pasted in from a transcription and you fix it, it typically pops up and asks you if you want to save that to your custom dictionary, and then it'll remember that down the road and it doesn't keep making that mistake, which is pretty nice. Next is my note-taking app of choice, which is Bear. Now, I technically do use other note-taking apps alongside this. I'll use Apple Notes to do kind of quick capture if I need to write someone's phone number down or just random thoughts throughout the week. But Bear is typically where I like to go and write and focus. So if I'm prepping an outline for a video like this, or I'm trying to brainstorm thoughts for a bigger project, I like that to be in a very focused and simple space. And I think Bear does that really well. You can go into a focus mode, which just pulls up the note you're working on. Everything's powered by Markdown, which makes it really easy for AI to translate. They also just released an MCP, which means that Claude can now look through all my notes and have a lot more context when we're talking. And if I'm chatting with Claude and I want to save something, I can just push that to Bear now without having to copy and paste things manually. The main thing after 1.5 years of usage is that Bear is not something you can really customize. Beyond maybe changing the theme and like the font size, there's no plugins, there's not a lot of organization since everything is tag-based, there's no folders. And I think it just really helps me stay focused on actually writing stuff and getting stuff done. Whereas something like Obsidian, I just found sent me in a rabbit hole of always customizing, always finding new themes and plugins. Next up, we have an app called Mist, and this is definitely app of the year for me so far, but it's essentially a minimal nutrition tracker that's powered by AI. Now, I used to use MyFitnessPal. At one point, I had like a 1,500-day streak on there. And I even tried some of the competitors, like I think LifeSum and some of the others. But I found that a lot of them were just very bloated with other features. And if you didn't pay for them, they often had ads. And what I like about Mist is it's very simple to look at. There's no ads, there's not a ton of UI. It really just looks like a simple log throughout the day. There's a few ways you can capture. You can just start typing immediately. You don't have to worry about separating things out. It's usually pretty good at how it identifies individual parts of your meal. And essentially it does a web search and looks things up for you based on whatever you type. So just like Gemini or ChatGPT, whatever those models would be doing to look that up and kind of do a quick fact check, that's happening all in the background when you're typing, so you don't have to worry too much about getting everything exactly right. You can also scan barcodes or just take photos of a nutrition label. We often use a meal delivery service, and I'll just take a picture of the label of those boxes, and it pretty much gets it 99% of the time. There's also a chat feature in here as well, which is useful if you're trying to look at specific patterns and just kind of get recommendations. Obviously, this is all powered by AI, so you can take it with a grain of salt. It's meant to just be there as another data point. It should probably not be used as medical advice by any means, but I found that I'm getting way more value out of this than something like MyFitnessPal. So if you're serious about tracking your health and your nutrition specifically, I would really recommend trying out Mist because it's made building that habit of capturing what you eat so easy. At number 9, we have MyMind, and this is my bookmarking second brain app, if you will. And essentially, it allows you to just save anything from the web. You can capture it in the Chrome extension. You just go to whatever website you want. You can hit the little plus, and it saves that whole article or whatever you're on. And you can also use the share sheet on iPhone. So if you're watching an Instagram video or you see a tweet you want to save, you can send it to MyMind, and that link is saved, but it also lays everything out really nicely in a really easy to follow visual layout. You can kind of think of MyMind as the Pinterest of bookmarking apps, but with no ads and a lot smarter. One of the main selling points of MyMind is that you never have to add tags or organize things manually. They automatically categorize and add tags for you so that you can search things later. And they're always rolling out new features, whether it's with note-taking or adding an MCP, adding better AI search when you're looking for things. But I found that after a couple years of usage, this works really, really well for capturing anything visual. So maybe you're an interior designer, you love fashion, but anything you're just trying to collect and kind of put together a mood board for, it works very well. That's not to say you can't save recipes or text-based stuff by any means. I just think that when you're scrolling through something, being able to get a bunch of inspiration at once works really well for my brain. And being a designer where I'm trying to capture patterns and trends or anything that just sparks inspo, being able to quickly save that and then not have to dig through a bunch of folders or tabs to find it later makes it much more enjoyable to use. I also love the serendipity feature, which essentially just lets you look over 25 random cards that you saved, and you can decide whether you want to forget it or keep it. This was one feature that kept bringing me back to MyMind because I tried other bookmarking apps like Raindrop, and there was never really a good way to cycle through your vault or all of your bookmarks easily. So it could be really easy to just keep throwing things in there and never going back and checking if you actually need it. And finally, we have a window management tool for trackpad users out there called Swish. This is a pretty simple window manager that allows you to use the gestures on your trackpad to move windows around and lock them into a grid. You can customize the grid to be quarters, thirds, I think you can even go sixths or eighths, but pretty much on a dual monitor setup, I only use halves or the quarters. So if you want two windows side by side, you go up to the menu bar and you just swipe up and to the left. It'll pin that to the left half. If you want to put a window next to it or one in the top right, you start to swipe and then you can kind of see this little grid pop up and then you move the trackpad around again until you get to the specific quadrant you want. You can also swipe up to maximize and fill the screen or do a quick double tap and it'll center it perfectly on your monitor. Obviously on a MacBook, you have a built-in trackpad, so it works really well there. And I find that even on a smaller display like that versus a multi-monitor setup, it still comes in handy to quickly maximize screens or do like a 1/3 and 2/3 split. So those are 10 apps that I use in my workflow every single day. I hope there was at least one in here that you hadn't heard of and that you're looking to try out. I'll put all the links to these down in the description, obviously, so you can check them out. And I'd love to hear from you what essential apps you reach for every single day. Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.